Shabbat Shalom. Page 59. That means you can take a look at your Siddur to understand what it is I'm about to describe to you, because it's a little visual. On page 59 we have Psalm 27. Now Psalm 27 is the psalm that we recite daily during the month of Elul, this month that stretches from the month prior to Tishrei, the month of Rosh Hashanah, this month of introspection and reflection. And it's quite unusual, since this psalm mentions nothing about Rosh Hashanah, mentions nothing about Yom Kippur, of why would we be reading this as a daily meditation for an entire month. I'm not going to go into all the reasons. It is a slightly lengthy psalm from among the many that are found within the book of Tehillim, but I want to focus on something that isn't on the page. What I mean is, take a look at the next to last line. It's easy to find because it has that little triangle next to it. Everybody found our spot at the bottom? In English it says, bop, 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 ellipse. It's kind of hard to put that into words, right? We have the three dots trailing off. If only, lulei, lulei he'emanti. There's only a couple things that are unusual about this particular printing. One, the translation puts it into the present tense, whereas lulei he'emanti is normally put into the past tense. If only I had believed, or only I could believe, or if only I had remained in full faith. Something about the doubt that the psalmist, in this case David, King David, had about this promise of God exposing God's goodness in the land of the living. The second thing that is slightly wrong with this particular printing is it's missing the dots. It's missing the nikudot. Now, I don't mean the vowels. Those are there on the page, which is excellent and very, very helpful. But that first word, lulei, has dots over it. It's one of the few occasions found in the Tanakh where certain words are dotted with small dots above it. You'll find it when you do Torah reading from place to place. You'll find it in the Tanakh in a few more places, but as we don't normally read from the Tanakh from a printed scroll, but instead from a book like in your hands, many publishers will refrain from putting in these additional diacritical remarks. I went to rabbinic school to learn that wonderful word. These special little markings to say there's more information. The problem, of course, is what information is implied by these extra dots that you have to imagine are hovering over that word if, lulei. What is the doubt? What is the if? And what is the reflection upon the doubt that is hiding within that concept? Well, first we have to unpack what that whole sentence is trying to say, before we can then go back and see how our Chachamim, the sages, have tried to interpret the dots that you, again, have to imagine are there on the page. So it's that ending that gives us the best insight into what this line is trying to say. The three dots in English that trail off at the end of the line. What that means, of course, is that there is an unfinished or unstated side to this verse. If only I had believed or could believe, then what? What is implied? What might be filled in at the end of that blank? Anything I wish. If only I could believe that I would see God's goodness in the land of the living, then I would have ice cream for dessert. Doesn't quite work. It's not quite anything I want. I do like ice cream for dessert, but I don't think that would fit in that particular line. The mood is subjunctive, indeed. Right. There is this if clause, but there is a tendency in Hebrew when the sentence goes unfinished, that it is trying to reflect something that is emotionally or spiritually troubling to the author, so troubling that they can't put it onto the page. That to even say the words would simply feel wrong. It would feel a betrayal. It would feel a failure. And so it is left implied. This often happens with curses throughout the text of the Tanakh. It often happens when people are swearing oaths that if I fail to do this, well, you can imagine what happens as punishment to me if I fail. Here the implication seems to be that David has seriously, at some point in his life before writing this psalm, doubted the justice of God. That he has actually gone through a moment of spiritual crisis where he said to himself, will I ever see the justification, the righteousness, the goodness of God? Will it ever be fulfilled? Or will it not? Will God fail to uphold God's promises? Will God fail to give reward to the righteous? Will God allow the wicked to continue to prosper? Will this entire world that I am watching around me, which spins in chaos, completely crash and be destroyed? If you look at the sentence right after, what does David say to himself? You're welcome to use the English. Place your hope. Strengthen yourself. Be strong. Chazak. Be strong. He's not just saying that to us, the reader, he's saying that to himself as well. That in his moment of despair, he shakes himself free and says, no. We can be strong, I can be strong, and get past this existential dread of the potential meaninglessness of life. I can stand and say it will work out. But there are still those dots, the ones that aren't on your page, that we have to explain. And say the Chachamim, David went through this internal, emotional, spiritual turmoil, this conflict within himself of whether indeed righteousness would win out in the end, whether God would make good on the promises to support, defend, and reward those who were good. And eventually he worked that out. Eventually he recognized that yes, God is good to his word. God brought us out of Egypt. God delivered us in his own days from the Philistines, David's days. God will eventually redeem our people again and again and again from suffering. That I can be assured of. In this world, as well as the world to come, the righteous will receive their reward. But there was still one doubt that David could not quite resolve: whether he was one of the righteous. He could see the scope of history and all that God had revealed by his actions from creation through to his day, and all that David knew and believed of the future, that it would work out, that the good people would eventually be rewarded both in this world as well as the world to come. But what David was not quite sure of is whether he could be legitimately counted among their ranks. And if you know the stories of King David, you can understand why he might have hesitated. He was not a perfect king, and he wasn't a perfect person. He was somebody who had numerous personal failings of leadership, failings as a father, failings as a husband. And when he weighs himself in the scale, when he looks at himself in the mirror, he doesn't exactly like what he sees. He doesn't exactly believe that he should be counted among the true, good, and righteous people. Surely he knew people who had made fewer mistakes than himself. And so this lulei, can I believe that I will be on that side? That I will make it to the realm of those that are being rewarded? Or will I still receive additional punishment because of my many, many failings? Now that is not a bad place to be. I know that's very counterintuitive. We have numerous books and books and books, aisles at Barnes & Noble filled with all the self-help guides which tell you that you're wonderful, amazing, and perfect. Don't ever change. You are great. You're terrific. Absolutely. During the month of Elul, 1 month out of the 12, we say, yeah, but maybe I could be better. Maybe I've been sort of giving myself a free pass on a few aspects of my life. Maybe I'm not a perfect husband, a perfect father, a perfect sibling, a perfect child, a perfect friend, a perfect member of my community, maybe I'm not so assured of being counted among the good and righteous. Maybe I need some adjustment. Maybe I shouldn't just sit back and coast, thinking that everything is taken care of and that surely if anyone is good, it must be me. Maybe I should say, you know what? How about if I do just a little better this week, this month, this year? How about if I take care of those little problems that I know are there, that have been niggling away at the back of my mind? And even though I'm not, of course, among the most horrible or wicked, I'm not somebody that should be, cast out of society. I can't quite bring myself to say that I'm so perfect that I don't have anything left to fix. And so for this month, and through the high holidays, we say, Lule, if I can do better, I will. If I can be honest with myself, I can reflect on my mistakes. If I take the time to do an accounting of my own behavior, my own actions in the world, I may find a few things that are in need of repair, a few things that are in need of remedy. And that's okay, because God gave us the ability to do that. God never asked us to be perfect. God only asked us to fix the mistakes that we make. And the first step towards being able to do that is to recognize that we do make mistakes. That we should not be so self-assured and smug in our own sense of righteousness that we believe that there is nothing left for us to improve. But instead, for a month, we remind ourselves, you know what? Don't take your position for granted. Do a little extra work. Find the points of improvement. You can do it. And then indeed, being strong, being courageous, you will find yourself in that place of trust of God. Shabbat Shalom.